Hi, it's MTK on the MIC and on the CAM. That's right. I thought I'd appear in front of the camera. Beard's back, and I'm starting to look more the way I'm supposed to look in the world, right? So I just spent 2 years. Basically what I did was this, right? My dad died in 2020, and he was in the hospital for like the last, 3 weeks, maybe, not even 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. Hospice. And um, it was intense. And then right then, somebody got diagnosed in Washington, the state of Washington, with a weird new virus nobody had ever heard of. And it was like, I heard people were freaking out. And then a few days later, a cruise ship with all these people on it, same thing. And then my dad was really sick. When you're dealing with someone who's dying or who is really sick, you're not thinking about the newspaper. You're not thinking about the news much, obviously. Like huge chunks of who you are just totally focused on the thing that you're in. You're dealing with death, so you're not thinking about, global warming or whether or not this guy is being impeached in the news. None of that's relevant in a moment when people are dying, right? Because you're so attuned to that. And then the morning he died, I remember the newspaper here in the town where he spent most of his life and died. The newspaper said, first death from COVID-19 in this county, right? So that was something as it was happening, I didn't know it was even happening. My dad did not die of COVID, but he happened to have died on the exact day of the first death from COVID where he lived. That in and of itself is nothing, right? It's just a fact floating there in space. But now, in retrospect, when we look back on the last 3 years, and the first year and a half of those 3 years especially, the pandemic. And by the way, we need to start bordering the pandemic, because one of the ways out of it is to stop listening to people talk to you about long COVID, or if you don't get your vaccines, it doesn't. People are stupid, ignorant, uninformed, and non-scientific. You must understand this. This has nothing to do with anyone else at this point. This has to do with our psyche as beings on the planet, right? Our psyche has to border this thing. It has to have a definitive beginning and a definitive end for us to be able to feel like it's done. And because it didn't have a definitive beginning, and it doesn't have a definitive end. Why does it not have a definitive end? Because there was no policy globally. There was no policy even within one nation. There was no attempt to really address the thing globally. Instead, there was tremendous politics. Guys like Trump and Bolsonaro and others they were willing to let millions die. It didn't matter to them because they knew they weren't going to die. When Trump was in the limousine coming from the hospital after he had it and was given all the highest whatever was required to keep him healthy, to them, letting millions die is an irrelevancy. Millions can die. Millions did die in Iraq and Afghanistan. They just killed millions of people, and they don't count them among the dead of their actions. They killed millions of people in Cambodia and Vietnam, and when they give the reports in America, right, it's X 100,000 American soldiers died, and then maybe if you're reading, a progressive magazine or something, it'll say, and 10 million. I'm sorry, I don't know the actual figures at the moment, but part of this waking up in the morning and doing it is about the ideas, not the stats, right? Like, this is not a statistically driven podcast. I'm not here to go look up a bunch of things on the internet and then say them to you. Hey, I looked up all these things on the internet you should know, and I'm going to say them to you. That's not what this is. it's not about statistics, it's about emotions, right? It's about how we feel about things. I'm trying to marry what I've been doing historically, which is, you know, I tried to be avant-garde. I tried to be ahead of what was happening for so long, And I happened to be of an age where a lot of that was exploding in front of my eyes. I mean, the internet was born in front of me. Computers, the personal computer came into our house when I was a teenager. The first ones that ever existed. We had the TRS-80. Randy Klein had the first Macintosh, with the stenciled number soldered onto the back, limited edition, like my classmate did. And then we saw the birth of the internet, and I was in college by then, so now I was participating to some degree in that. And statistics is what I actually studied in my master's program. So this is not about that. This is not about me studying statistics and science and processes and then delivering news to you. I did that. I'm not doing that here. That's not the point of here. The point of here is philosophical and emotional. It's for us to address some things that we're either not talking about or we're talking about in the wrong way. And this is a big one. We don't have borders for this illness. And it's going to be on and on and on like that because of the nature of politics and the way people talk to each other and the manipulability of most people. People were terrified, and they still are. Many are, especially if you're older. Why wouldn't you be? Right? See, getting the beard back, I look the way I'm supposed to look. When my father was 57, he didn't look like me. He didn't look young like me. He didn't have dyed long hair, and, when he shaved, he couldn't look 15 years younger. That wasn't part of the deal. Our generation is trapped between the millennials and the boomers, and so nobody's noticing. But in reality, we are the first to experience things, so that means we are actually the first to be able to discuss them emotionally, which is really important. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just speeding everything up with the robots and the gaming, the machines. We're all going so much faster, we're all talking so much faster, we're all functioning so much faster. There's no time to actually discuss the direction we're going. It's just going. That's what's about to happen with the election next year. You think I don't know? I've watched elections in this country for the last 45 years, from Mondale Reagan to today. So let's talk about how that happened with COVID. If there's a beginning to COVID, it is either a pangolin in a wet market or a bat. That's what they told us. That's what I have in my journal. In fact, I think I have that journal. Let me see if I can grab that real quick. Yeah. Here we go. That's January to June of 2020. Right? Dad died, COVID-19 struck, racial unrest erupted. George Floyd changed the world. A year and a half later or something, I would go to Amsterdam, and they now have extra picture notations next to all of the major paintings from the Dutch Golden Age about the slaves that are in the pictures for the first time. There's a placard. Here's the art made by this guy. Here are the people in it. And then another placard. Servants and slavery. The person in the back is this slave. We think his name was this. A complete description of the guy. After centuries of nobody giving a shit and thinking of him as property. Right? That was George Floyd that made that happen. Black Lives Matter being born out of this horrifying death of this young man. So that was the 6 months we're talking about. But maybe it happened in October right before that, right? Like maybe when there was a visit by the U.S. people over there to the Wuhan area, someone said there's possibility that it was carried over. Someone said, no, they generated it in a lab. There's a lab there, right? So in the beginning days, you had to choose how to think about this. And sociopolitically, if you were of one type, you immediately went to, it must have been man-made. It's man-made. It's a man-made thing, and they made it in that thing. The Chinese are trying to kill everybody. I don't know what you think. That was not me. I am logical. I'm trained in the sciences. And my father was dying in front of my face, right? And while that was going on, I am hearing in the news that there's some kind of illness going around. Coronavirus, COVID-19, pangolin possible origin to human in a wet market in Hunan. Okay? So, by the way, while Dad was dying, coronavirus, pangolin, possible origin global pandemic, day 25 in self-quarantine, right? That was the beginning of it. I guess we don't know. Still, we don't know. The odds of it being lab made are increasing because the Chinese aren't forthcoming, I don't think, about everything. But there's also the possibility that it's still some kind of zoo, uh, logical zoovirus, neurovirus. See, we used to know all these terms, and now it's starting to fade away, right? So, what is the end? What is the end of the COVID? That's kind of the interesting question. So, to talk about the beginning is, again, we're talking psychically, not statistically, not even dates, right? I'm trying to say emotionally, we have to have a beginning and we have to have an end. And for some people, the beginning is that first death in their town, or the beginning is when the cruise ship they heard about, or the beginning is they heard there's some guy in Washington that has an illness they never heard of, or the beginning is, when they went into quarantine. That was day 25 of quarantine. So we don't have a native beginning, except that we named it coronavirus 19, COVID-19. So that makes it even crazier. So was it from the before? There are people who think that it was carried over there by the Americans. A group went over in October. They believe this, okay? And that they carried something over there and discreetly left it there in the hopes that it would kill the Chinese. This was warfare. Covert, discreet warfare we're talking about. That's what some people think. Other people think the Chinese made it for that purpose. The likeliest, if it's man-made, is that it was an accident. That's the problem with having laboratories that deal with extremely sensitive material, whether it's radioactive material, or it's viral material, or it's, explosive material. You have to be intensely careful and have multiple redundancies in place, Again, I'm not saying the Chinese are worse at that than anyone else, but they have proven to be less sensitive to the rules and more interested in the progress. This has been the nature of the Chinese government and the Chinese people and the way they've acted, especially during this boom time for them. So, the beginning. When was the beginning of it? I don't know. Sometime in there, October of 2019 to when my dad died. Is that about right? Somewhere in there is when it started. Then we were all in quarantine. Then there was that insanity. So then, and now the end. Is there an end? Well, there's an end for the people who took the shots. That was amazing. mRNA is amazing. It's great science. It's incredible science. And the people talking it down and making a mockery of it are discounting the millions who were saved, whether it was directly, by it working, or emotionally and psychically by us going, okay, well, now there's a vaccine. I'll take the vaccine, I'll go back to work. There was a kind of shift in the culture. And then it immediately divided the culture. And people were like, Layer's doing that to make you go back to work, right? There's a kind of no, wait, what? So the science and the economics and the policy all became a soup of just BS. Nothing. It's a fucking madness, and nobody knows how to behave. And wherever you are, you're just making it up for yourself and your family, right? And then our family members started dying. And our friends started dying. And then we kind of got a handle on it. Did we? Ever? I don't know. Those took shots seem to have. And then when does it end? When is it over? When is the end of this thing? When is the end of this thing? It's about to be the first of the year. And I think psychically we want to think of the COVID-19 pandemic as being over. And I think in many places it does feel that way, but in many others it does not. The economy of Bangkok is tanked. Thailand, the economy had tanked. San Francisco, we are in deep doo-doo. It is ugly over there. We are not back in San Francisco. That's just a fact. There are plenty of places around the world that are not back. But maybe there isn't a back. right? Even when it was happening, we were talking about, well, this is an opportunity for us to change the way we've been going. Because we've been going in this insane way. And this will stop it, right? There were all these natural effects that came out of it. Whales in the Hudson or something. But that's not really happening. What's happening is we're being driven by very specific interests right back into a channel of stupidity. And I had hoped we would be able to break that channel of stupidity, and that's kind of what I'm talking about today. For me, I'm going to start saying this is it, it's over, I'm done. I'm done with COVID. I'm done with it. Now, there may be another one. There may be another illness. There may be another viral illness. So obviously, I'm about to wash my face masks that are washable. I'm about to re-up on my N95 masks and make sure I have a nice storage of them. I keep 2 folded in a plastic bag, and I drop them inside my shoulder bag, which I carry everywhere. I'm going to function differently because of the years 2019 to 2024. Let's call it 5 years. Well, 4 years. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 is 5 years. But it was half of 19, right? Or maybe even a third of 19. All right? So it's 4 years and a third we've been wrapped up in this thing. 4 years and a third, right? But I want an ending for me. I never got it, by the way. I've never had COVID. I've been around the world once fully, stayed for long stretches of time in Europe, in India, in Asia, East Asia, and then back to East Asia, and then back. I've been in the United States around New York, California, and some people say, oh, you're lucky. Some people say, oh, it's your genetics. Some people say, oh, you took the shots. Other people say, I don't know what. Well, how could you not have gotten it? Maybe you had it and you didn't know, right? That's what everybody tells me. This has been a very complicated time, and